I'm Chris Stafford, and you're listening to the WiSP Sports News Desk. This is Season 4, Episode 19, and we're recording on May 25th, and with me is my co-host in the UK, Nancy Gillen. And Nancy, I think before we get into the conversations about the women's sports news, we really, both of us, I think, feel it behooves us to recognise what happened here in the States yesterday, and that was yet another school shooting resulted in the multiple fatalities, 19 elementary school children, some adults, including teachers, and still some injured children are in hospital. And I think when we sit here and every week and we want to talk about sport, usually the feel-good stories about sport, the highs and lows of sport and how sport impacts a life. I think when we have such horrendous news, Nancy, it really puts everything into context because, as you know, we have far too many killings caused by gun use here in the States, more than anywhere in the world. So I just want to say before we get into the sports news this week that we, both of us, are thinking about this, obviously, like so many people in the world, and certainly it's in the hearts and minds of most people here in the States this morning, that we really want to reach out and extend our condolences to everyone that's been impacted by this, because it's just horrendous thinking of how all of those families, Nancy, that are without children, the communities, their friends, the children that have survived, and how they have to all move on. It's really hard to comprehend the grief that they must all be feeling. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Nancy.
Yeah, I think just reflects what you said there. Like you said, it's kind of a story that, has kind of been made, all around the world. Everyone's aware of what's happened. So, I think just to reflect what you say and like you said, just puts everything into perspective a bit, doesn't it?
It really does. And we just want to extend our condolences to everyone that's been impacted by this, near and far, and however close or not close you were to this, but it really does have a devastating impact on us all. So with that, Nancy, I know we've got a lot of sport to talk about again this week, and we're going to lead with football because I know there's a lot of football news one way or the other. So I think the good news, let's start with some cheery news, which came out of Europe last weekend, and it was a game that we both watched, the Women's Champion League. That was some wonderful football. That was some wonderful football there. Very, very entertaining.
It was, and it was two heavyweight teams in women's football in Europe, so Barcelona and Lyon. Interesting kind of dynamic between the two teams because Lyon are kind of traditionally the powerhouses in Europe, so they've won. I think it was now they've won 8 women's Champions League titles in the past decade. But it was Barcelona that won the Champions League last season when Lyon were having quite a significant dip in form. So I think as well, there's the whole narrative that kind of Barcelona are currently the best team in the world, and they've been getting in 90,000 people to watch them at stadiums, and they've kind of seen as the pinnacle of women's football. And I think a lot of, I think there's, Lyon, but also I think other footballers as well maybe saw that as a bit, the narrative around Barcelona as a bit disrespectful to Lyon when over the past 10 years they've been technically the most dominant force of women's football. So, there were a lot of different kind of narratives around the final, which made it more exciting. And then the action on the pitch itself was also just brilliant. I think for anyone that didn't see it, it was 3-1 to Lyon, but all 4 goals came in the first half. So Lyon went 3-0 up and just kind of completely obliterated Barcelona in the first, something like 20 minutes. Barcelona got a goal back. And then in the second half, they were really threatening. And there was a point where Putellas hit the crossbar from the halfway line. If that had gone in, it could have been a completely different game. And they had a lot of good chances missed, really. So I think they will, it wasn't completely one-sided. It was a very open game, and yeah, Barcelona definitely had their chances, but it was just brilliant. It was so entertaining. And I know you want to talk a bit about Amandine Henry's goal.
Yeah.
The opening goal in 6 minutes. I think that goal just set the standard for the whole match, because yes, it was 6 minutes in. I think she was like 25 yards out, if not more. She just got the ball and absolutely smacked it into the goal, and it was brilliant. It was one of the best goals I've seen all year.
Well, I think one of the best goals in football. I mean, all credit to her, because we should just back up a little bit here. She had a tackle just before that, which she fell. So she composed herself. She had about 5 or 6 very short strides to compose herself after she got up from that tackle, and just hit it, smacked it right into the top corner of the net, top right-hand bin, I think it was, and it was an extraordinarily powerful goal, given that she had lost her momentum by having fallen and having to regain herself in such a short distance to bang that one home. So, I mean, particular credit to her for that kind of recovery and equilibrium.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and just the composure to score the goal that she did, and so early on in a Champions League final as well. It was, it was brilliant. So
credit to her, and you know who I'm going to give a shout out to now was the other goal.
I do, yeah.
Katerina Macario, of course, plays for USWNT. One of the rising stars in the game. I just love watching Kat play, and that was. She was in the right place at the right time. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, it's no, the scoring in the Champions League final was a massive achievement, and I think she got, was it 9 goals in total? I think through the whole tournament. So,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for the kind of the top competition in Europe, it's very impressive. Like you said, one of the rising talents in the game. So yeah, she was pretty good for Lyon as well.
Yes, she certainly was, and it was fun that she and Lindsay Horan, of course, also a US player, were playing. And I don't know if Lindsay's contract has been extended. Do you, or is it just Kat that's further contracted to Lyon?
I'm not sure, to be honest, but I think it's always a bit tricky with the going from Europe to the US, because I imagine if Horan was to go back to the US, she's now kind of joining after the season started. So I don't know if there's how that works really. So yeah, I'm not too sure, but yeah, interested if she did go back to the US, where she'd be heading. Yeah.
Well, we'll watch that one, of course. The season's well underway here. Christian Press produced, and she didn't score an own goal, but she set up a goal that turned into it was credited to her, I think, but it was an own goal. Did you see that at the weekend?
I didn't see that, no.
No, she managed to cross it right off the line, and it came off the defence into the goal. So she set it up. But there was no one there of her team to pop it home, so she had to rely on the opposition to score an own goal for her.
Yeah, nice to see she's settling in well and back playing.
Very much so, and she's playing really well, really well. I shouldn't sound at all surprised. I'm just like, yes, I'm not surprised. But, after she took that break, a mental health break, and did a little bit of touring in Europe and just took some time off for the sport, she seems to have come back very fresh and very ready, and with all the instincts that she had before, and playing really well. So it will be very interesting to see if these veterans, and I think we've touched on this before, Nancy, whether these veterans will come back into the national squad with so much talent in the tiers below them. I'm talking about, they being the veterans, right? And then all of these younger players that are making their mark of being on the winter training squads. how these veterans are going to get back in, like Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe. What about Ali Krieger and Ashley Harris? And there's so many goalies too, right, to choose from. And then of course Kristen Press and Tobin Heath. I mean, what do you feel about this now? Do you feel any differently? Do you have any new insight that you'd like to share with us?
Not really new insight, I suppose, is my opinion, which is I don't think that they will get back into the team, to be honest. Because I think it is a new era of the USWNT. That's maybe Press and maybe depending on where Heath goes, because I suppose they're more actively playing. I know Rapinoe's playing as well, but yeah, I think because there's now been this new kind of squad in the USWNT, and you've got people like Macario coming through and stuff like that. I think it's
Trinity Rodman, Sophie Smith. I mean, yeah. I mean, the list goes on. Yeah,
it's impossible to. I mean, I don't think it will ever go back to how it was, say, like the 2019 World Cup. Like you might get like 1 or 2 or 3 of them in the squad.
Lindsay Horan, of course, is another one.
Yeah, I think Horan should definitely.
Crystal Dunn.
Horan should definitely be included for sure. I think if you're in a Champions League winning team, that should be. And
Crystal Dunn just had a baby. Congratulations, Kristen. She just had a little boy last week. So, yeah, I mean, she'll want to get back. I mean, she's absolute fire in the midfield, isn't she? And then, of course, there's all the players, the squad that did hang on. I'm thinking the players from the old squad, if you like, that are still in there. But, yeah, I think it will be... Rose Lavelle is one that comes to mind, She's still playing on the squad. She's still named on the squad. She's still playing very well. But likes of Julie Ertz, I wonder if she'll ever come back and if they'll make room for Crystal Dunn, We will see. It's going to be an interesting year because World Cup's not that far away, right? We don't have the Euros.
Coming up to a year away.
Yeah.
Just pretty close.
Any more on the Women's Champions League then? Did that tell you anything differently about the state of play in Europe right now with the Euros coming up this summer?
I suppose it just kind of raised the anticipation and excitement for the Euros, just because it was such a great match and so many of the players on that pitch will be representing their country at the Euros. Like the likes of Ada Hegerberg, who's returning to the Norwegian national team setup. The large majority of the Spanish team play for Barca. So you've got a lot of French players. I thought Selma Basha, one of the Lyon defenders, was brilliant, and she's going to be in the French national team. It just made me more excited. Just shows how competitive the Euro is going to be. I'm especially considering when there was not a single English player in either of those two teams. Not to say that England don't have a strong squad, because we do, but that just shows that the depth of talent for other countries as well. So definitely made me more excited, and I imagine it's the same for a lot of football fans everywhere.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And let's not forget that Vivian Miedemeijer, she's staying with your club, Arsenal. Yeah. Plays for the Netherlands, of course, so another force to be reckoned with. But you won't have to deal with Sam Kerr. Sam get a bit of a break now. I know she was over here with her girlfriend, Christy Mewis, this past week. So I don't know, she does have a bit of time off, or is there something happening with the Australian national squad that she'd have to return to?
Not aware of anything. They've probably got some friendlies, but I don't think there's a continental competition. And I mean, they've qualified for the World Cup as hosts anyway, so I don't even think they have to play in qualifiers. So I think she gets a full break, which is concerning for next season when she's probably going to come back really rested. Because obviously last summer she had the Olympics, so didn't get as much rest.
Well, she's had a super season, so she deserves a good break now before she has to pick up her national duties again and return to Chelsea. Now, I want to come to Chelsea because they won the double, as we've talked about here, and now they have new owners. So Emma Hayes, of course, seems the manager extraordinaire, and leading her winning team there. Presumably, she'll stay with the team. What's next?
Yeah, I personally think she should stay with the team. I think there's been a few kind of rumours and stuff, but I think most of it's kind of like made up. I I don't think there's anything from her indicating that she will want to leave. I think especially because, like that question, where will she go next? Apart from going into like a very good team in men's football, I can't really see her kind of moving. Like, why would she go to any other team in women's football? I suppose the big thing for Chelsea now is the Champions League, which, we just talked about Lyon and Barcelona being the two dominant teams in Europe. Chelsea went out in the group stage last season. Arsenal were the team from England that went the furthest, and they got to the quarterfinals. So the English teams aren't quite there yet. I know Chelsea got to the final when Barcelona won, but yeah, I think for her it's going to be the Champions League and really pushing on to. She's won a lot of trophies in England now, so it's about looking to Europe, I think. And yeah, like you said, they've got new owners. I think that's quite interesting. So it's a guy called Todd Bowley who's taken over, and he is already a part owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I know he's also got ownership of the Los Angeles, Sparks, the WNBA team. And then he was also part of a bid to take over, I think it was North Carolina Courage, which didn't happen, I think, because he was then going to Chelsea, and that would be conflict of interest. But he obviously sees value in women's sports and women's sports teams. So that bodes well, I think, for Chelsea, for the women's team, because he obviously sees the value in it, and will probably be willing to invest and make sure that Chelsea stay the best team in England and potentially win the Champions League in maybe next season, but in the next kind of few years or so.
Yes, I'm sure she'd love to get her hands on that trophy. Let's move on to other news of women making history in women's sports, and in football particularly, because you mentioned the men's game, and it would be interesting, wouldn't it, to see. You wouldn't be surprised, let's put it this way, if a men's team did want to Emma Hayes as their manager. But we want to talk about some female referees now that are going to be refereeing the World Cup. They're officiating the World Cup for the first time. So that's another milestone for women in football.
Yeah, a massive milestone. So this is the Men's World Cup that's happening in Qatar in November and December. So, 36 officials picked in total, including 3 women. So that's Stephanie Frappart, Salima Mukansanga, and Yoshimi Yamashita. So Frappart in particular, I know I have heard of because she's officiated a lot of men's matches before, and I think she was involved in an England match, like an international match. She's relatively well known. And then Mukansanga as well, she refereed at the Women's World Cup and the Olympics. And then similar to Yamashita as well, who's also done that and was the first female referee to take charge of an AFC Champions League fixture, so the Champions League in Asia. Obviously very, this is not just like a, tokenistic move. All 3 women are incredibly qualified and experienced. And yeah, it's amazing to see 3 women as well. And not just one, like there's going to be multiple. And then there's also 3 female assistant referees who have also been picked. So Nusa Bak, Catherine Nesbitt and Karen Diaz Medina will also be going to Qatar to be assistant referees. So yeah, it's just really good seeing kind of female representation increase across the board in football, not just on the pitch, but in things like officiating as well.
Yeah, good for them. Good for them, making history. Well, before we get away from football, I did just want to mention it's an article I saw about the Euros in 22, which we mentioned just now, that they're expected to shatter attendance records this year. They're predicting between 435 and 525,000 tickets to be sold. So, Again, another milestone, Nancy.
Yeah, massive. I think that's expected to comfortably exceed the levels of attendance at the Euros in 2017, which I think at the time that Euros, which was held in the Netherlands, was deemed to be a success. So, you know, kind of exceeding that again is brilliant. I think it's definitely the signs have been there, like the final sold out, the openers sold out, all of England's group stage games are sold out. A few other group stage games are sold out as well. So obviously as the tournament goes on, people will probably want to go along and more tickets will be sold. So yeah, I think, you know, I'm incredibly excited for this summer, and I think it's really going to transform women's football in England. And hopefully people that have never been to a women's football game before, maybe, you know, get a ticket and come along, because it's going to be really good.
All right. Well, as we mentioned last week, the French Open Tennis Championships were beginning this past weekend on Sunday. We're into now fourth day of play, Nancy, and there have been some major upsets, haven't there, already? Yeah,
there have. It's been already very dramatic. So we're kind of into the second round, but some of the first round upsets. I think the one I was most surprised by was Ons Jabeur, the Tunisian tennis player. I wrote something going through the 5 favourites in the women's tennis tournament, and she, I think behind Swiatek, Jabeur was my second pick, just because she's been really good on clay so far this season, and she won the Madrid Open earlier this month as well, reached the final of the Italian Open, so it seemed like she was in brilliant form. But yeah, lost in the first round of the French Open to Poland's Magda Linette. So that was a bit of a shock. I think she was kind of expected to really kind of, you know, I think her half of the draw will be pretty happy that she's gone out, because she was a big threat. The defending champion, Barbara Krejcikova, she won the French Open last year, which was a bit of a surprise as itself, because she was an unseeded player. But yeah, I think this is kind of maybe less of a surprise, and it's an upset because of her status as defending champion, because she hasn't played recently because of, I think it was an elbow injury that she picked up at Indian Wells. So she came back in time for the French Open, and I think it was an issue of lack of fitness. But she probably, you know, came back a bit early because she wanted to defend her French Open title. But yeah, it seemed like it was a bit too early for her, and she has gone out. Garbine Muguruza, the Spanish player, she's another former winner at Roland Garros, but this was quite a while back in 2016. But still, she's been fairly in form recently and won the WTA finals last year. I think lost to Kai Kanepi. So she's kind of, I remember as well at the Australian Open, there was I can't remember who she beat, but she's kind of quite one of those players that is not too high in the rankings, but always seems to upset some of the big names. Naomi Osaka's out, so she lost to Amanda Anisimova, the same player that she lost to at the Australian Open in January.
Yeah. She seems to have got the hang of her, doesn't she? So
yeah, she does, and she always seems to come up against her at Grand Slams as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So and then Annette Kontaveit as well, the 5th seed. She lost in straight sets to Australia's Alja Tomljanovic. And Emma Raducanu lost today as well. So maybe that's not too much of an upset, but I suppose that's the current US Open champion going out of the tournament. So yeah, a lot of kind of favourites and seeds going out, but for me, it's still kind of maybe not irrelevant, but just in the form that Iga Swiatek's in at the moment, you can't, you know, she definitely is going to win it. Like I'd be very, very, I'm very, very confident that she is going to win it. So, you know, despite all these people that have gone out, Swiatek probably would have found at some point she would have come up against them and beat them anyway. So, yeah, but it's been very exciting so far.
Yeah, super exciting. Well, I can see where your confidence lies. But whilst the players are really wanting to be focusing on Roland Garros, right, they've been distracted somewhat with the news coming out of Wimbledon that they're going to remove rankings points from Wimbledon, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. 3 weeks. 3 weeks in June, and this has been a major distraction for them, isn't it? And those points have been stripped after Russian and Belarusian players were banned from competing at Wimbledon because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So where does this leave the other Grand Slams, Nancy? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose because I found it all very interesting, just in the grand scheme of things, that tennis's reaction to banning the Russian and Belarusian players has been completely different to every other sport, because it's happened in every other sport and people have accepted it, and that's just been the process for what's happened. Basically, in tennis, it's very different. So Russian and Belarusian players, they haven't been banned, but they have there's no sign of their nationality. They don't have the flag. The flag doesn't appear next to their name. They don't, their anthem isn't played. All of that. But they're still allowed to play at every tournament, and that's been what's happened since February until Wimbledon banning them. And then so ATP and WTA have kind of responded by stripping Wimbledon of the ranking points, which is it's interesting because
it's a bit backwards, doesn't it? It really does seem backwards. When you say this is not in other sports where the Russian and Belarusian athletes have been banned. That's gone the way of everybody's feelings, really. That no one has complained about that. No one has said, "Hey, no, you can't ban them." I mean, from the IOC down. So this really is extraordinary. And you've got players like Pliskova, the Wimbledon runner-up, who she said she'll drop out of the top 10 if she can't defend the points. And it's the wrong decision. And
I think the Australian player that we were talking about before that beat Kontaveit in the French Open, Tom Chavonik, she reached the quarterfinals of Wimbledon last year. So the majority of her ranking points come from Wimbledon. Because she can't defend them, she's just going to fall massively, 40, 50 places down to 80th or something.
Extraordinary.
And I think that's why, for me, it doesn't quite make sense, because ATP and the WTA have made this decision because they said you can't discriminate against players, but then their decision seems to discriminate against players, because there's going to be players that are going to fall down the rankings. I think it's the players that are around the 200 300s as well, or 100s, who rankings are quite important because of earnings and stuff like that. That's a big deal. I think they've also, the ITF has stripped rankings from the points from the wheelchair and junior events as well, so it's kind of a blanket thing. And you've had some big names like Pliskova. I think Osaka has said that she isn't sure if she's going to go and play, because it's kind of what's the point?
There's friends, the top players maybe joining them too, which just seems extraordinarily the wrong way around. I don't know, upside down, inside out, and the wrong way around.
Yeah, it seems to have been that obviously there's a group of players that want to be able to play at Wimbledon, and now it's just caused a even bigger fuss. The whole thing I do find very interesting. Yeah, tennis seems to be the inverse of the rest of sport and their attitudes towards it. You could probably do a deep dive into why and how that's come about, but it's a shame, because obviously Wimbledon is such a great tournament, and this is overshadowing, like you said, the French Open. It will overshadow Wimbledon, and it is a shame that whoever wins Wimbledon, it doesn't mean as much, basically, or whoever it does. As watching it'd still be a great sporting spectacle, but in terms of kind of the players who will want to play and rise up the world rankings and defend their points from last year, it doesn't make sense
if you ban the Russians and the Belarusians, like most sports have done, but you penalise the rest of the world.
Yeah, it is very strange.
It's backwards. All right. We'll keep you posted here. If that, I don't know whether Wimbledon would back out on this one, whether they would rethink it after the storm that it's created. But, they haven't got much time to do that. So I'm not holding out any hope. But we'll keep you posted here on the show, as always. We're going to move on to the former Olympic medalist Mikato Katana. seeks to protect women from sexual objectification. This is a story out of Tokyo, isn't it, Nancy, that was on Inside the Games. Tell us about that, because that's interesting given what we've just lived through with Tokyo.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. So, Katani was the sports director for Tokyo 2020 for the Olympics. And, she's kind of essentially working to stop female athletes from being sexually objectified kind of when they're photographed. So during the games, there were a series of measures that were introduced to ensure that this didn't happen. She's spoken to kind of Kyodo News about what they did at the games and how she's kind of continuing to do this work. So, during the games, she said that they had the right to check images that people took that were deemed suspicious and ask people to delete them. And that the rule was clear, so violators would be rejected. And that she said that athletes performed better when they were in a safe environment. And then she also kind of is urging sporting bodies to do more to make sure that female athletes are protected. So she said sporting organisations have to find creative ways to stop covert photography. I hope our efforts at the Tokyo Olympics improve Japanese society and lead to a best future. Our work only becomes meaningful when that happens. And she also praised, I don't know if you remember this, Chris, but the German gymnastics team who didn't wear a leotard for the competition. They wore like a unitard, so they wore their trousers as well. So I think Katani there kind of praised them because they wore the unitards as a protest against the sexualization of women in sport. And Katani said she was impressed at how they took action to empower female athletes and promote values through sport, rather than just thinking about how to win or perform well competitively. So it's quite an interesting interview. It's well worth a read.
Definitely. Well, good for her. All right. We've got a doping ban, a story, which we haven't had for last few weeks. So tell us about this one. Something about acne medication.
Yeah, this was a really interesting story that came out towards the end of the last week over here in England. So one of the Women's Super League football players, Chioma Ubogagu, so she plays for Tottenham and she has in the past played for England. She received a ban for 9 months for essentially using like acne treatment. So she'd used to play in the US and was prescribed this by a dermatologist for her acne. And then she made the move to Tottenham. And then, basically kind of she explained later, I read an interview with her where because she moved during the pandemic, all the medicals and stuff were done virtually. So somehow this medication that she was on or like putting on slipped through the cracks. So she only found out when she'd texted the team physio saying that she wanted a resubscription, to get a repeat prescription, and texted him what it was, that he was like, oh, this is a banned substance here, that she realised. So it was quite an interesting one. I think as well, it's not performance enhancing, but it's a diuretic, so that can cover up. That's why it's on the banned substance list, because it can cover up other substances that people may take to enhance their performances. But I think again, just well worth having a read of the story, because it's something that obviously you see a lot of this kind of acting without full doping violations and stuff. But I haven't seen a story quite like this. And also in football as well, you don't really see doping bans too much. So it's very interesting. And I would be very interested to see whether the same ban would have been given to like a Premier League male player, whether they would have found a way to appeal it, or, because I've never seen anything like it before. It's very unusual.
It just shows you really have to be so diligent about what you're taking, even though it's not performance enhancing. It's just, something you would think would be as benign as, some acne medication. But anyway, she seems to have taken that on the chin, and it's going to serve her 9 months ban. When did that ban start, Nancy? How is she? So, would she have been in a contender for the Euros? She was with her. No, she wouldn't have been, would she?
No.
Even though she played for a European squad. No.
I know she does. She has played for England in the past, so she's got 3 England caps, but she's not really in the squad anymore. She wouldn't have been in contention, but so the ban runs out in October. So I think she was given the ban. It must have been, if that's October, it must have been February time, and they've only just announced it now. I think now the season's end, they have explained why she wasn't playing. She's got about 4 months left and over the summer as well, so she's not actually missing out on too much football. So I'm sure she'll be relieved to be getting back on the pitch soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck to her. And we're going to wrap up this week with another happy story about motor racing, because if there's one name that we've become very familiar with here on the show when it comes to motor racing, and specifically the W Series, is British driver Jamie Chadwick. The rest of them simply cannot catch her, can they? She won again.
Yeah, she's having an incredibly dominant start to the W Series season. So she secured her 3rd W Series win in Barcelona. She's basically just, no one can really catch her. I think every race, when we talked about it before, she's always been challenged by Abby Pulling and Alice Powell. They've always gone really, really close to her for the majority of the race, but then Chadwick just pulls away at the end. She's got maximum points, is at the top of the leaderboard on 75 points, and next is Abby Pulling on 38 and Alice Powell on 33. So she's already got an incredibly healthy buffer between her and her opposition. So if she was to win overall, it would be her 3rd W Series title in a row, which just shows how dominant she is.
Well, she's got to wait a few weeks now, because they don't come back until Silverstone in England, in Northamptonshire. That's on July 1st and 2nd. So she's got a bit of a break here. But I'm looking at you get related stories and Chadwick's headlines, like Chadwick starts in pole, Chadwick wins again, Chadwick wins W Series, and on it goes. Chadwick starts hat-trick bid. It's going to be all about her this season. But, it's a tremendous experience and grounding for her, and hopefully another rung up the ladder towards Formula 2, Formula 1 for her. Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely the aim for her. And like you said, I think it shows kind of her dominance, that she's maybe needs more of a challenge anyway. So I would hope that if she does win the W Series this year, next year she will be starting to work her way up the F3, F2, F1 ladder.
Yes. Jamie Chadwick, British driver extraordinaire. Well, good luck, Jamie. We will be following you for the rest of the series. And as I said, that starts up again in July in Silverstone. Have you ever been to a Formula 1 track, Nancy?
No, I haven't. Because I've been to Monte Carlo. I've seen that's in the city. So I haven't been there when there's a race on, but I've seen it. But potentially I might be able to hopefully maybe get to Silverstone this year, but we'll see. I'll keep you posted on that.
That's a great track. I actually, I went to a Formula 1 race, when they have the Formula 1 some years ago, the British Grand Prix. And I also, and I don't tell many people this, Nancy, but I also rode go-karts at Silverstone.
Did you? Wow, that's cool.
It was. I should explain what it was. It was a media fundraiser for the British team, an Olympic fundraiser, and we were asked to choose a team, and there was myself and Claire Balding and Elizabeth Firth, who's a photographer, Kit Houghton, another photographer, and Kate Green, who's a journalist. And I have to say it was darn good fun, because we were out there on the track, on the part of the track. Extraordinarily good fun. And we raised a good deal of money for the British Olympic team. So, hey, don't ask me to do that again, though.
Yeah, it sounds like a great experience.
Yeah, it was great fun. All right, well, that just about wraps it up for this week, Nancy, doesn't it? Unless you've got any other breaking news, because I know you've got some personal breaking news, haven't you? You've got a big event this weekend.
Well, yeah, going up to the Lake District to do a Trails half marathon, which, should be an interesting experience. I haven't done too much training. But even if it's, you're just walking up the hills and running down, that's fine by me. So yeah, it should be really, really fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, it should be all about having fun, right? It's not like the London Marathon, which you are setting out now to win one day. So this is all about a fun in-between event for you.
Yeah, exactly. This is a day off from my hardcore endurance running training.
I love it. Well, hopefully you get some decent weather, perfect temperature for running and have a great weekend there. And you're doing it with some friends.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we're camping and then doing this run. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, good luck with that, Nancy. You'll tell us about it, how it goes next week here, I'm sure, on the show. Now, before I go, I want to give a shout out to Marcy Corniger. You know, Nancy. Marcy is hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. She and I recorded our first episode of the Amazon special series about her hiking the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, which is on the west coast here of the States. 2,650 miles. She started on May 12th down at the Mexican border, and she's now 200 miles in. I spoke to her on the weekend, on Sunday, when she was 180 miles in, and that episode is available at WiSP Amazons or on the WiSP Sports main channel as well. And then she resumed. She got back on the trail, and she just yesterday clocked up 200 miles, and she crossed over I-10. If any of you know, I-10 goes east-west out of LA, straight into the desert. So she's still in triple-digit temperatures in the desert. Plenty of rattlesnakes out there and extraordinary difficult conditions. But Marcy's a trooper, and on she goes. So we'll be catching up with her again down the trail, literally, maybe in a few days when she stops to get another shower and do her laundry. That's the only way we can catch up with her, Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds, like I think I mentioned last week, but I'm like reading a book about women doing the PCT at the moment, and it just sounds like such an incredible challenge. So really interesting to hear how Marcy's getting on.
Yeah. All right. Take a listen to that again on the WiSP Amazon channel or the main channel, the WiSP Sports main channel. Show notes, as always, at wisports.com. We're on social media at WiSP Sports. And Nancy?
I'm at Nancy_Gillen on Twitter, Nancy Gillen_sport on Instagram, and then Give Me Sport W. That's where all of Give Me Sport Women's articles are.
All right. Well, until next week when Nancy comes back and tells us how she got on with that run. And that's it for us again. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy your sport.